All projects and programs follow the same fundamental life cycle, which is made up of several phases. We use processes to manage these and develop a process model that forms the basis of a method, often referred to as a methodology. In this video, we'll look at the nature of the underlying life cycle, the processes and activities used to manage its phases, and finally, how these are connected together to create a process model and method. I'll start by introducing a simple generic life cycle that is common to both projects and programs. We'll develop this and then explain the relationship between life cycle phases and processes. Next, we'll develop the life cycle processes into a full process model that provides a foundation for describing a methodology for managing projects and programs. All projects start with an idea. The purpose of the life cycle is to show how that idea is turned into reality. The first phase involves having a quick look at what the project will involve. Rather than diving straight in and spending lots of time and money, we need a high-level check that the idea is a good one and has a reasonable chance of success. As a result of taking this quick look, we may decide to go on and do more detailed investigation. If the idea doesn't look so good, we should stop at this point, because avoiding projects that are not likely to result in a good return on investment is why we take this phased approach. Only if the more detailed look confirms the value of the idea do we start doing the work. This is where we turn the idea into reality. In this example of a simple project, the result is an output, and when that is delivered, we close down the project. In the Praxis framework, we give these phases the names: identification, definition, delivery, and closure. Outputs must then be used to generate benefits if the investment is to be worthwhile. In many situations, this happens after closure, but in some circumstances, realizing benefits may be included as part of the project. For now, we'll include the benefits realization within the life cycle. We now have a simple linear life cycle that comprises 5 phases, and the next step is to define a process to manage each one. For simplicity, in Praxis, we give each process the same name as the corresponding phase. So the identification phase is managed by the process of the same name. Similarly, the definition phase is managed by the definition process, and so on. But what do we mean by process? In basic terms, a process takes one or more inputs and uses them to produce one or more outputs. Let's briefly look at a simple example. The identification process takes the idea as an input. The first activity appoints a team that will perform the identification process. The team's first activity is to review what has gone well and not so well in previous similar projects. In the next activities, the team prepare a high-level outline of the project, called a brief, and a plan for the definition phase. Finally, these outputs are submitted for approval. All the processes take this format of inputs, activities, and outputs. The result is a simple linear series of processes that match the life cycle. A full model needs more than just the processes based on the life cycle phases. A moment ago, when I introduced the identification process, I mentioned the need for authorization. This is handled by a sponsorship process, which straddles the full life cycle. The delivery phase and its corresponding process handles the high-level coordination of doing the work. At a more detailed level is the development process that focuses on individual work packages. Larger projects may be subdivided into stages, and the completion of one stage and commencement of another is handled by the boundaries process. When all these are connected together, we end up with a full model, as shown on the next slide. Piecing these processes together gives us a structure for managing a project. The generic model will need to be adapted to different contexts, but the principles are common across all projects. The same basic model works for programs. The difference being that the delivery process now manages multiple projects, and there is a more complex relationship between those projects and the benefits they deliver. If you'd like to know more about this process model, watch our dedicated video explainer. Finally, let's look at what needs to be added to the model to create a methodology. Firstly, the activities that need to be performed in each process are described. These are what take us from the inputs to the outputs. Secondly, we describe the documentation and information flows that facilitate the operation of the processes. Thirdly, roles that operate the process model are described. It's important to note that when I talk about activities, documentation, and roles, I talk about describing, not defining. All methodologies need to be tailored to specific contexts. The word define sounds rigid. A description is something you can adapt. When you read about these aspects in the Praxis framework, read them as generic descriptions that you then tailor to your unique situation. This has been a quick overview of how we get from the life cycle described in the knowledge section of the Praxis framework to the processes described in the methods section. There are other videos and many pages on the Praxis website that will help you understand and implement a process model for your project or program. To view more videos like this, visit the Praxis Framework website, subscribe to our YouTube channel, or follow our LinkedIn page.